Some men buy Teslas when the marriage gets rocky. I check credit card bills. Less fun, more revealing. My name is Grant Halston, and I'm about to tell you how my wife's family destroyed my life, how my friends abandoned me, and how I made them all pay for it in ways they never saw coming. It started on a Tuesday morning in October when my wife Elise announced her brother was moving in with us. Not asking. Announcing. "Danny needs a place to stay for a few months," she said, not looking up from her phone as I poured coffee. "Just until he gets back on his feet." Danny Brennan was 35 years old and had never been on his feet to begin with. Trust fund baby turned professional disappointment. He'd burned through 3 businesses, 2 marriages, and more money than most people see in a lifetime. The kind of guy who wore designer clothes to job interviews at Starbucks and wondered why nobody took him seriously. "How few months are we talking about?" I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. "He'll figure it out. Family helps family, Grant." That phrase, family helps family, it became the soundtrack to my personal hell over the next 6 months. Danny moved in that weekend with enough luggage for a European tour and the attitude of a man doing us a favor by gracing our guest room. He immediately set about making himself comfortable, which meant treating our house like his personal hotel and me like the concierge. "Grant, buddy, we're out of that good coffee you buy," he'd announce at 7 in the morning, standing in our kitchen in his boxers. "Mind grabbing some when you're out?" "Grant, the Wi-Fi's being slow in my room. Can you call the internet people?" "Grant, I borrowed your car to meet some potential investors. Left it at the valet downtown. Here's the ticket." Each request delivered with the casual entitlement of someone who'd never heard the word no. And Elise, my wife of 15 years, backed him every time. "He's having a hard time adjusting," she'd say when I complained. "This is temporary." Temporary stretched from weeks into months. Danny's job search consisted mainly of networking lunches that I paid for and business meetings at expensive bars where he'd pitch half-baked app ideas to anyone who'd listen. Meanwhile, our grocery bills doubled, our utility costs skyrocketed from his marathon gaming sessions, and our marriage started showing stress fractures that grew wider every day. The breaking point came in March, during what Danny called his launch party for his latest venture, a subscription service for artisanal beef jerky. He'd invited 40 people to our house, hired a catering company on our credit card, and turned our living room into his personal boardroom. I came home from work to find strangers drinking my liquor, eating food I'd unknowingly paid for, and listening to Danny pitch his business plan with the confidence of someone who'd never failed at anything. "There's Grant," Danny announced when he spotted me. "The man who made all this possible. Give him a hand, everybody." The applause felt like mockery. I stood there in my own doorway, briefcase in hand, watching my brother-in-law take credit for my generosity while spending my money to impress people I'd never met. That night, after the last guest left and Danny had passed out on our couch surrounded by empty bottles, I confronted Elise. "This has to stop," I said. "He's been here 6 months. He's not looking for work. He's not contributing, and now he's throwing parties with our money." "It was a business event," she replied, not looking at me. "Networking is important." "Networking? Elise, he spent $3,000 on catering for a beef jerky subscription service. Do you hear how insane that sounds?" "You don't understand entrepreneurship. I understand freeloading." That got her attention. She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Not anger, exactly. Contempt. "Danny is family," she said slowly, like she was explaining something to a child. "He's trying to build something. You used to be supportive of people's dreams. I used to have savings too. Funny how things change." The fight that followed was our worst in 15 years of marriage. Voices raised, accusations flying, years of buried resentments bubbling to the surface. It ended with Elise sleeping in the guest room, the one Danny wasn't using, and me staring at the ceiling until dawn, wondering when my wife had stopped being on my team. But the real damage wasn't to our marriage. It was to our friendships. See, Danny had been busy during his 6 months in our house. While I was at work, he'd been bonding with our social circle, charming them with his stories of business ventures and startup dreams, painting himself as the misunderstood entrepreneur and me as the uptight accountant who didn't understand vision. Our friends, people I'd known for years, started taking sides. And they weren't taking mine. It started subtle. Invitations that came addressed only to Elise, group texts that I somehow wasn't included in, plans made around our kitchen table while I was at work, plans I'd only hear about secondhand. "Oh, we're all going to Dave's lake house this weekend," Elise would mention casually. "Danny's going to pitch his jerky idea to Dave's investment group." We? The usual crowd. Sarah, Mike, Jennifer, Tom, you know. I did know. They were my friends too. Or had been. The shift became obvious at Mike Chen's birthday party in April. Mike and I had been close since college, but when I walked into his backyard barbecue, the conversation stopped. Not the natural pause when someone new arrives, the uncomfortable silence when someone unwelcome shows up. "Grant," Mike said, his smile too bright, too forced. "Glad you could make it." Danny was already there, holding court by the pool, regaling Sarah Williams and her husband Tom with another story about his latest business idea. This one involved artisanal soap made from craft beer. The group was hanging on his every word like he was the next Steve Jobs instead of a 35-year-old man living in his sister's guest room. I grabbed a beer and tried to join a conversation with Jennifer Martinez and her boyfriend Dave. But they seemed distracted, checking their phones, making excuses to drift away. It was like being a ghost at my own social circle. The worst part was watching Danny work the crowd. He had this way of making everyone feel like they were in on something special, like his presence elevated their ordinary suburban lives. He'd lean in close when he talked, make intense eye contact, remember details about their jobs and kids. Classic con man stuff, but effective. "Grant's been so supportive," I heard him tell Sarah. "Really opened his home to me during this transition period. It's amazing what family will do for each other." Sarah glanced at me across the patio, and I saw something I'd never seen from her before. Pity. Like I was the sad older brother who couldn't see how special Danny was. That's when I realized what was happening. Danny wasn't just freeloading off my hospitality. He was stealing my life, my friends, my social standing, my role in the group. And he was doing it with my wife's blessing. The final straw came at Jennifer's dinner party 2 weeks later. I almost didn't go, but Elise insisted. "You've been antisocial lately," she said. "People are starting to notice." People were starting to notice, all right. Just not what she thought they were noticing. The dinner was at Jennifer's house, a restored Victorian in Cambridge that she was always showing off. 8 people around her dining room table. Jennifer and Dave, Sarah and Tom, Mike with his new girlfriend Amy, plus Elise, Danny, and me. I should have known something was up when I realized the seating arrangement put Danny at the head of the table and me squeezed between Amy, who I'd met exactly once, and Sarah, who'd been avoiding eye contact with me for weeks. The conversation flowed around me like I wasn't there. Danny dominated naturally, telling stories about his networking adventures and business prospects. Everyone laughed at his jokes, asked follow-up questions, treated him like the guest of honor. "So, Danny," Jennifer said over the main course, "Sarah mentioned you're looking at office space downtown." "Just exploring options," Danny replied smoothly. "The jerky business is gaining traction faster than expected, might need to scale up sooner than planned." This was news to me, since Danny's jerky business consisted of exactly 0 customers and a website he'd paid someone on Fiverr to build. But everyone nodded like he'd just announced his IPO. "That's so exciting," Amy chimed in. "It must be amazing to have such a supportive family. Grant, you must be so proud." All eyes turned to me. 8 people waiting for my response to a question about being proud of my brother-in-law's imaginary business success. "It's something," I said finally. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel Elise's glare burning a hole in the side of my head. Grant's always been the practical one, Danny said, his tone light, but with an edge underneath. Keeps us dreamers grounded, right, buddy? More laughter. Nervous this time, but still laughter. At my expense. That's when Tom decided to twist the knife. You know, Grant, maybe you should be more supportive of Danny's ambitions. Not everyone can be an entrepreneur, but those of us who can't should at least encourage those who are trying. The table went quiet. Tom Williams, who I'd helped move 3 times, who I'd driven to the airport at 5 in the morning, who I'd listened to complain about his job for hours over beers, was lecturing me about supporting my brother-in-law. Excuse me? I said. I'm just saying maybe instead of being negative about Danny's business ventures, you could try being encouraging. Success requires a support system. A support system, I repeated slowly. Like paying for his food, housing, transportation, and business expenses for the past 8 months? Grant, Elise warned. But I was done being warned, done being managed, done watching my friends turn against me in my own life. No, Elise. Tom thinks I should be more supportive. Let me tell him exactly how supportive I've been. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. The numbers were all there, meticulously tracked by someone who'd spent his career managing other people's finances. 8 months of groceries for 3 people instead of 2, $4,000. Utilities increase from Danny's gaming setup and extended showers, $800. Car insurance addition, $1,200. Credit card charges for business lunches, networking events, website development, and tonight's catering bill, $11,000. The table was silent now. Catering bill? Jennifer asked. Oh, you didn't know? Danny hired a catering company for his launch party, at our house, on our credit card. $3,000 for 40 strangers to eat shrimp cocktail while he pitched a business plan written on napkins. Grant, stop, Elise hissed. Why should I stop? Tom thinks I'm not supportive enough. Let me tell him about the car Danny borrowed and left at valet parking downtown. $200 to get it back, plus $50 in parking tickets he never mentioned. Or the time he used our address to sign up for business credit cards. Or the investors he's been meeting with. You know, the ones who think he owns our house because that's what he told them. Danny had gone pale, but he tried to maintain his composure. Grant, you're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed, and it came out harsher than I intended. Danny, you're 35 years old and you've been living in my guest room for 8 months. You've never paid rent, never bought groceries, never even done your own laundry. You threw a business party with my money for a company that exists only in your imagination, and somehow I'm the one embarrassing myself? That's enough, Sarah said sharply. Danny is trying to build something. Maybe if you understood what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Sarah, what exactly do you think Danny has built? Name one thing, one customer, one sale, $1 of revenue from any of his businesses. She opened her mouth, then closed it. I'll wait, I continued. Because in 8 months of living in my house, eating my food, and spending my money, Danny has generated exactly 0 income from his entrepreneurial ventures. But please, tell me more about what it takes to be an entrepreneur. You don't understand the startup world, Mike said. Building a business takes time. Mike, you're a high school teacher. What do you know about the startup world? More than you, apparently. That's when I lost it completely. Really? More than someone who's spent 15 years managing business finances for actual entrepreneurs? More than someone who's seen hundreds of business plans and knows the difference between a viable company and a fantasy? You think Danny's beef jerky subscription service is the next Amazon? At least he's trying, Jennifer said. At least he has dreams. Dreams don't pay rent, Jennifer. Dreams don't put food on the table. Dreams don't cover the credit card bills that keep piling up while Danny networks his way through Boston's bar scene on my dime. Money isn't everything, Amy said quietly. I turned to look at her, Mike's new girlfriend who'd known me for exactly 2 hours. You're right, Amy. Money isn't everything. But respect is, and responsibility is, and not taking advantage of people who care about you is. Danny has shown me none of those things, and apparently neither have any of you. I stood up, my chair scraping against Jennifer's hardwood floor. 8 months ago, I thought I was helping family. Turns out I was funding my own replacement. You all like Danny better than me? Fine. You think he's more interesting, more ambitious, more worthy of your friendship? Great. But don't pretend this is about entrepreneurship or dreams or supporting family. This is about you choosing the fun guy over the responsible guy, and that's your right. Just own it. Grant, sit down, Elise said, her voice tight with anger and embarrassment. No, I'm done sitting down. I'm done being the bad guy for having boundaries. I'm done apologizing for expecting basic respect in my own life. I looked around the table at faces that had been friendly for years and were now cold with judgment. You want to support Danny's dreams? Be my guest. But do it with your own money and your own houses and your own marriages. I'm done. I walked out, leaving my wife at the table with our former friends and her freeloading brother. The April air was cold against my face as I sat in my car, hands shaking from adrenaline and anger. My phone buzzed with texts almost immediately. Sarah, that was completely inappropriate. Tom, you owe Danny an apology. Mike, what happened to you, man? Jennifer, you embarrassed Elise. That was cruel. I deleted them all without responding. When I got home, I sat in my kitchen and made a decision that would change everything. I opened my laptop and started documenting. Every expense, every lie, every manipulation I'd witnessed over the past 8 months. If my friends wanted to choose Danny over me, they were welcome to him. But they were going to learn exactly who they'd chosen. The war had begun. I just didn't know yet how devastating it would become. Elise didn't come home that night, or the next night. She was staying at Sarah's house, according to a terse text message. Need space to think. Danny, meanwhile, acted like nothing had happened. He lounged around the house, ordered takeout on DoorDash, and continued his job search from our couch. The difference was, now he was doing it all with a smug satisfaction that made my skin crawl. Rough night last night, he said when I came downstairs for coffee Thursday morning. Maybe next time don't air our family business in public? Our family business. Like he was an equal partner in this household instead of a grown man mooching off his sister's marriage. Danny, I said carefully, you have until Sunday to find somewhere else to live. He laughed. Actually laughed. Come on, Grant. You're not serious. Absolutely serious. Sunday. Gone. Elise will never go for that. Elise isn't here, and when she gets back she can choose between her husband and her brother. But she can't have both. That wiped the smug look off his face. For the first time since he'd moved in, Danny looked genuinely worried. You can't be serious? Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Hotel, friend's couch, back to mom and dad's. Not my problem anymore. This is about last night, isn't it? About your little tantrum at dinner? This is about 8 months of you treating my house like a hotel and my bank account like your personal ATM. Last night was just the final straw. Danny's expression shifted from worry to calculation. I could see him thinking, trying to figure out his next move. What if I start paying rent? He asked. I've got some deals in the pipeline. I could contribute to expenses. With what money, Danny? You haven't had income in 2 years. The jerky business is about to take off. I've got investors interested. No, you don't. I do. There's this group downtown. Danny, stop. I've seen your business plan. I've looked at your financials. There are no investors because there's no business. There's just you spending other people's money and calling it entrepreneurship. He was quiet for a long moment, staring into his coffee cup. When he looked up, his expression had hardened. You know what your problem is, Grant? You're jealous. Jealous? Yeah, jealous that people actually like me. Jealous that I have vision while you're stuck pushing numbers around spreadsheets. Jealous that Elise respects what I'm trying to build. What you're trying to build. Danny, You're 35 years old and living in your sister's guest room. What exactly am I supposed to be jealous of? The fact that I'm not afraid to dream big. The fact that I don't settle for mediocrity just because it's safe. That's when I understood. Danny actually believed his own bullshit. He'd spent so long selling himself as the misunderstood entrepreneur that he'd bought into his own con. In his mind, he wasn't a freeloader. He was a visionary. I wasn't his benefactor. I was his jealous, small-minded brother-in-law who couldn't appreciate genius. Sunday, Danny. Find somewhere else to live. I left for work, and when I came home that evening, Danny was gone. So were several items from our house: my laptop, Elise's jewelry box, the cash I kept in my desk drawer, and about half the liquor from our bar cart. I called the police, but they weren't much help. Domestic situation, they said. Hard to prove theft when the person had been living in the house. I'd have to take it up in civil court. I called Elise. "Your brother robbed us," I said when she answered. "What are you talking about?" "He's gone, and he took my laptop, your jewelry, $300 cash, and probably $1,000 worth of alcohol. I'm filing a police report." Silence on the other end. "Elise? Maybe he just borrowed some things. You threw him out with nowhere to go." "Borrowed? He stole from us and you're defending him?" "I'm trying to keep this family together while you're tearing it apart." "I'm tearing it apart? Elise, he robbed us. He literally stole from our house." "You forced his hand. What did you expect him to do?" That's when I knew my marriage was over. Not because of the theft, not because of the months of freeloading, but because my wife was defending her brother for stealing from us. Because in her mind, I was the villain for having boundaries. "I expected him to act like an adult," I said. Apparently that was too much to ask. I hung up and poured myself 3 fingers of the whiskey Danny had left behind. Then I opened my laptop, my backup laptop because I'm not stupid, and got to work. If my wife wanted to choose her criminal brother over her husband, fine. If my friends wanted to side with a con artist over someone they'd known for years, great. But they were all going to learn exactly who Danny Brennan really was, and they were going to learn it in the most public, humiliating way possible. The plan came together over the next week. Years of managing other people's finances had taught me how to research, how to dig, how to follow paper trails that most people didn't even know existed. Danny Brennan wasn't just a harmless dreamer. He was a serial scammer with a trail of victims stretching back 10 years. The failed businesses weren't just bad ideas, they were cons. He'd take investors' money, spend it on personal expenses, then declare bankruptcy when the bills came due. His 2 failed marriages weren't just relationship casualties. Both ex-wives had restraining orders against him for financial abuse. The beef jerky business was his latest scam. He'd already collected $5,000 from 3 different investors, people he'd met through our social circle, people who trusted him because he was Grant Halston's brother-in-law. Money that was now gone, spent on the lifestyle he'd been living in our house. I had bank records, court documents, police reports, bankruptcy filings. I had testimony from his ex-wives, statements from his previous victims, evidence of check fraud and credit card scams going back years. Danny Brennan wasn't a misunderstood entrepreneur. He was a criminal, and everyone who'd chosen him over me was about to find out exactly what kind of person they'd been defending. The beauty of my plan was its simplicity. No elaborate schemes, no illegal activities, no revenge fantasies. Just the truth, presented in a way that no one could ignore or explain away. I started with social media, a simple Facebook post tagged to everyone in our social circle. Some of you have been asking about my brother-in-law Danny Brennan and his business ventures. I thought you might be interested in learning more about his track record as an entrepreneur. Then I posted everything. Court documents showing his bankruptcy fraud, police reports detailing his theft from previous partners, bank records proving he'd stolen from investors, restraining orders from his ex-wives, a complete timeline of his criminal activities over the past decade. The response was immediate and devastating. Sarah called within an hour. "Grant, what the hell is this?" "It's the truth about Danny. The truth you didn't want to hear when I tried to tell you in person. You can't just post people's private information online." "It's not private, it's public record. Anyone could have looked this up if they'd bothered to do 5 minutes of research before deciding I was the bad guy. This is vindictive and cruel. What's cruel is defending a criminal who stole from his own family. What's vindictive is choosing a con artist over someone you've known for 15 years without even asking for his side of the story." She hung up on me. Tom called next. "You need to take that post down immediately." "Why?" "Because it's defamatory." "It's not defamatory if it's true, Tom. Every document I posted is from official court records or police reports. Danny's the one who committed crimes, not me." "This isn't about crimes, it's about you being a vindictive asshole." "No, Tom, this is about you lecturing me about being supportive while Danny was literally stealing money from people in our friend group. Did you know he took $5,000 from Mike's girlfriend Amy for his jerky business? Did you know he's been using our address to apply for credit cards? Did you know he has restraining orders from both his ex-wives for financial abuse?" Silence. "You didn't know any of that, did you? Because you never asked. You just decided I was the problem and Danny was the victim, without bothering to learn anything about who you were defending. How was I supposed to know? By asking questions, by doing basic research before choosing sides, by trusting someone you've known for years over someone you met 8 months ago." Tom hung up too. The calls kept coming. Jennifer, Mike, Dave, Amy. All angry, all demanding I take down the post, all insisting I was being unfair and vindictive. None of them could dispute the facts. Danny was exactly what I'd said he was, a criminal who'd been scamming people for years. But somehow, I was still the bad guy for exposing him. The breaking point came when Amy called, crying. "Grant, I need that money back," she said through tears. "The $5,000 I gave Danny. I borrowed it from my student loans. I can't afford to lose it. Amy, I'm sorry, but I don't have Danny's money. He spent it. But you're his family. You have to help. I'm not his family anymore. And I tried to warn all of you that he was trouble. Nobody wanted to listen. You never said he was a criminal. I said he was irresponsible with money, that he'd never paid for anything himself, that he was taking advantage of our hospitality. What did you think that meant?" "I thought you were just being mean." That conversation broke my heart. Amy was 26 years old, just out of grad school, drowning in student debt. $5,000 was a fortune to her, and she'd given it to Danny because she trusted him, because he was charming and confident and had convinced her he was the next big thing in artisanal food. But even Amy's tears couldn't make me regret exposing Danny. If anything, they reinforced why it had been necessary. How many other young women had he scammed over the years? How many other people had lost money because no one bothered to warn them? The social media post went viral in our extended circle, shared, commented on, dissected by people I'd never met. Danny's victims started coming forward, not just the ones I'd found in court records, but new ones. People who'd lent him money, given him jobs, trusted him with their businesses or their hearts. The pattern was always the same. Danny would charm his way into someone's life, present himself as a visionary entrepreneur with big plans, then slowly drain their resources while making excuses about why his businesses weren't taking off. When the money ran out, he'd disappear, leaving behind debt and broken promises. My wife's brother wasn't just a freeloader, he was a predator. Elise finally came home on Saturday night, a week after the dinner party that had started everything. She looked exhausted, older somehow, like the weight of defending Danny had aged her. "We need to talk," she said. I was sitting in our living room, reading on my tablet. The house felt different with Danny gone, cleaner, quieter, more like home. "I'm listening." She sat down across from me, not next to me. The distance felt intentional. "You destroyed him," she said quietly. Danny's life is ruined. He can't show his face anywhere. People are calling him a criminal. People are calling him a criminal because he is a criminal, Elise. Everything I posted was true. It was private family business. It stopped being private family business when he started stealing from our friends, when he started using our address for credit applications, when he robbed our house. He didn't rob our house. He took some things when you threw him out with nowhere to go. He stole my laptop, your jewelry, and $300 cash. That's robbery, Elise. It's a crime. She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. I can't forgive you for this, she said finally. For what? For telling the truth about your brother? For humiliating him publicly? For destroying his reputation? Danny destroyed his own reputation. I just documented it. You're supposed to be family. Family doesn't steal from family, Elise. Family doesn't lie to family. Family doesn't spend 8 months taking advantage of family's generosity, then rob them when the free ride ends. He's my brother, and I'm your husband. Or I was. She looked up at me then, and I saw something final in her expression. A door closing. I want a divorce, she said. I'd been expecting it, but hearing the words still hit like a physical blow. Because I exposed your brother's crimes? Because you chose revenge over family? Because you aired our private business to hurt someone I love? Because you've become someone I don't recognize? I became someone who refuses to be stolen from and lied to. If that's unrecognizable to you, maybe you never knew me at all. She stood up, smoothing her skirt with hands that shook slightly. I'll be staying at Sarah's while we work out the details. I want half the house, half the retirement accounts, and alimony. You want alimony? Elise, you make $60,000 a year as a graphic designer. I make $85,000. We don't have enough money for alimony. We would if you hadn't spent it all supporting Danny. The irony was breathtaking. She wanted alimony to replace the money her brother had stolen from us. Talk to a lawyer, I said, but don't expect me to pay for your brother's crimes for the rest of my life. She left without another word, taking a suitcase of clothes and the moral superiority she'd wrapped around herself like armor. I sat in our empty house, surrounded by the silence Danny's departure had left behind, and felt something I hadn't expected: relief. For the first time in 8 months, I could relax in my own home. I could eat food I'd bought without worrying about feeding an extra mouth. I could watch TV without Danny's commentary, use my own bathroom without finding it destroyed, park in my own driveway without wondering if my car would be there when I got home. The marriage was over. The friendships were destroyed. But I was free. Or so I thought. The real war was just beginning. Over the next month, as word of my social media expose spread, something interesting happened. The people who defended Danny started getting defensive about their own judgment. Instead of admitting they'd been wrong, they doubled down on blaming me for the way I'd handled the situation. I wasn't wrong about Danny being a criminal. That was now undeniable. But I was wrong for exposing him publicly. I was wrong for embarrassing people who'd defended him. I was wrong for not handling it like an adult. The cognitive dissonance was fascinating to watch. They couldn't defend Danny anymore, so they attacked my methods instead. Sarah posted her own Facebook response. While recent revelations about Danny Brennan are concerning, the way this information was shared was inappropriate and hurtful. There are better ways to handle family conflicts than public humiliation. Tom wrote, "Nobody deserves to have their private business aired on social media, regardless of past mistakes. Grant Halston's actions were vindictive and unnecessary." Jennifer chimed in, "I'm disappointed in how this situation was handled. We should be supporting each other through difficult times, not tearing each other down online." Mike was more direct. "Grant, what you did was messed up. Danny needed help, not public shaming." The comments on their posts were revealing. People I'd never met were weighing in, most of them supporting my former friends. The narrative was shifting from "Danny is a criminal" to Grant is a vindictive person who destroys people online. It was masterful, really. They'd found a way to maintain their moral superiority while ignoring the fact that they'd defended a criminal over someone they'd known for years. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. See, I'd spent my career managing finances for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Real entrepreneurs, not con artists like Danny. I knew how to research, how to investigate, how to follow money trails and uncover hidden information. And I'd gotten very good at it over the past month. While my former friends were busy rewriting history to make themselves look better, I was digging into their own lives. Not looking for crimes, I wasn't interested in destroying innocent people, but I was looking for hypocrisy, for secrets, for ammunition. What I found was better than I'd hoped. Sarah Williams, who'd posted about handling family conflicts appropriately, was having an affair with her personal trainer. I had photos of them together at hotels, credit card records showing she'd paid for their trips, text messages she'd accidentally included in a group chat screenshot. Tom Williams, her husband, who'd lectured me about supporting people through difficult times, had been secretly gambling online for 2 years. He'd lost over $30,000 of their savings and taken out a second mortgage to cover his losses. Sarah didn't know. Jennifer Martinez, disappointed in how I'd handled my situation, had been embezzling from her employer for 6 months. Small amounts, carefully hidden, but definitely theft. She was stealing to pay for the renovations on her Victorian house. Mike Chen, who thought Danny needed help rather than public shaming, had been selling prescription drugs to his high school students. Adderall, mostly, from his own prescription, and others he'd collected, using his position as a teacher to deal drugs to teenagers. The information had been surprisingly easy to gather. People are careless with their digital lives, especially when they think no one is paying attention. Social media posts with location tags, credit card statements left on car dashboards, conversations overheard in public places, documents visible through windows. I wasn't stalking them, I was just paying attention. And what I saw was a group of people who judged me for exposing a criminal while hiding much darker secrets of their own. The question was, what to do with the information. I could have posted it all immediately, destroyed their lives the way they'd tried to destroy mine. But that would have been crude, obvious, the kind of scorched earth revenge that makes you feel good for 5 minutes, then leaves you looking like a monster. I wanted something more elegant, more devastating, more permanent. I wanted them to destroy themselves. The plan I came up with was beautiful in its simplicity. Instead of exposing their secrets publicly, I'd give them the opportunity to expose each other. All I needed was the right venue and the right pressure. The venue came courtesy of Jennifer's big mouth. She was throwing a housewarming party for her renovated Victorian, inviting everyone in our former social circle to see what she'd accomplished. The same house she'd paid for with embezzled money. The pressure would come from a simple game of truth or dare, adult style. I wasn't invited to the party, obviously, but I didn't need to be there in person. I just needed to plant the right seeds and let human nature do the rest. It started with an anonymous email to Sarah, sent from a burner account I'd set up. I know about you and Marcus at the Marriott downtown. Your husband deserves to know what kind of woman he married. You have 48 hours to tell him yourself before I do it for you. No signature, no demands for money, just a simple threat that would eat at her for days. Then, an email to Tom. Your wife thinks you've been working late. She doesn't know about the poker games and sports betting. $30,000 is a lot of money to lose without your spouse knowing. Maybe it's time to come clean. To Jennifer. Embezzlement is a felony. Your employer is starting to notice the missing money. Better to confess now than wait for them to figure it out. To Mike. Selling drugs to students is a career-ending mistake. The DEA takes prescription fraud seriously. So does the school board. 4 emails sent on Thursday afternoon. Jennifer's party was Saturday night. I spent Friday evening parked across the street from Jennifer's house, watching the frantic activity through her windows. Phone calls, pacing, what looked like crying. The emails were having their intended effect. Saturday night, I positioned myself at a coffee shop 3 blocks away and waited. The first call came at 9:47 p.m. Jennifer, hysterical. "Grant, I know this was you. I don't know what you're talking about. The emails, the threats, you're trying to destroy us." "What emails?" "Don't play dumb. You sent threatening emails to all of us." "Jennifer, I've been home all evening. I don't know anything about any emails." "You're lying." "Am I? What did these emails say?" Silence. She couldn't tell me what the emails said without admitting her own crimes. "You know what you did," she said finally. "I know I've been sitting in my living room reading a book while you've been having some kind of crisis. What's wrong, Jennifer? What's got you so upset?" She hung up. The second call came 20 minutes later. Sarah, crying. "How could you do this to me?" "Do what?" "You know what?" "Sarah, I honestly don't." "What's wrong?" "The emails, Grant. The horrible, threatening emails." "What emails? Sarah, you're not making sense." "Stop pretending. You sent emails to all of us. Threatening emails." "About what?" Again, silence. She couldn't explain what I was threatening without revealing what I knew. "You're a monster," she whispered, and hung up. Tom called next, his voice shaking with rage. "You sick! How did you get that information?" "What information?" "You know exactly what information." "Tom, I have no idea what you're talking about. Are you drunk?" "Don't play games with me, Grant. I know you sent those emails." "What emails?" "Tom, you're starting to worry me. Are you having some kind of breakdown?" "Screw you!" He hung up. Mike didn't call. Mike was smarter than the others. But I could imagine him sitting in his house, staring at his phone, wondering how much I knew and what I planned to do with the information. The beautiful thing about my plan was its deniability. I'd sent the emails from an untraceable account, made no specific demands, included no identifying information. They knew it was me, but they couldn't prove it. And they couldn't explain why they were so upset without admitting their own secrets. I'd turned their own guilt against them. The next morning, I got a call from Elise. "What did you do?" she asked. "Good morning to you too." Sarah called me crying. "She says you sent threatening emails to everyone." "Did she tell you what the emails said?" "She said they were personal and horrible." "Personal how?" Silence. Elise didn't know what the emails contained either. "Grant, this has to stop. The divorce proceedings are going to be difficult enough without you harassing our friends." "I haven't harassed anyone. I've been home all weekend." "Then who sent the emails?" "I don't know. Maybe someone else got tired of their hypocrisy?" "What hypocrisy?" "Ask Sarah. Ask Tom. Ask Jennifer and Mike. Ask them what they're so upset about. Ask them what secrets they're so desperate to keep hidden." "What secrets?" "If they haven't told you, it's not my place to say." I hung up, leaving Elise to wonder what her friends had been hiding from her. The fallout was swift and spectacular. By Monday morning, Tom had moved out of his house. Sarah had called in sick to work and wasn't answering her phone. Jennifer had hired a lawyer. Mike had requested a leave of absence from his teaching job. Their paranoia was doing more damage than I ever could have. Tom, convinced that Sarah knew about his gambling, confessed everything in a desperate attempt to control the narrative. Sarah, shocked by the revelation and already guilty about her own affair, broke down and admitted her relationship with Marcus. Their marriage imploded in real time, played out over social media and mutual friends. Accusations, counter-accusations, financial revelations, custody battles. The perfect couple who'd lectured me about supporting family through difficult times destroyed each other in less than a week. Jennifer, terrified that her employer was onto her embezzlement, quit her job and tried to return the money she'd stolen. The sudden resignation and mysterious reimbursement raised red flags with the company's accounting department. They launched an investigation that uncovered not just her theft, but a larger pattern of financial irregularities she'd been covering up. She was arrested on Thursday. Mike, paranoid that the school administration was watching him, started acting erratically, nervous, defensive, jumping at every phone call. His behavior was so suspicious that his principal called him in for a meeting. Mike, convinced he was about to be exposed, broke down and confessed to selling prescription drugs to students. He was arrested on Friday. In 1 week, the 4 people who judged me for exposing Danny's crimes had destroyed their own lives through guilt and paranoia. I hadn't revealed their secrets. They'd revealed them themselves. The irony was perfect, but I wasn't done yet. The final act of my revenge required one last performance, one last chance to show my former friends exactly who they'd chosen to side with, and what that choice had cost them. Danny Brennan was still in Boston. Despite everything that had happened, despite his exposure as a criminal, he was still trying to work his cons. Smaller targets now, people who hadn't heard about his reputation, but still trying. I'd been tracking him through social media and public records. He was staying at a cheap motel in Somerville, probably living off whatever he'd stolen from our house and scammed from his latest victims. On Saturday morning, exactly 2 weeks after Jennifer's disastrous party, I drove to his motel. He was in the parking lot, loading boxes into a beat-up Honda Civic that I didn't recognize, probably stolen or bought with someone else's money. "Going somewhere?" I asked. He spun around, startled. When he saw me, his expression shifted from surprise to fear to anger. "Grant, come to gloat? Come to talk. We have nothing to talk about." "Sure we do. We need to talk about Amy's $5,000, and the $3,000 you took from Jennifer's friend Dave, and the money you stole from our house." "I didn't steal anything. Danny, I have security footage of you taking my laptop. I have bank records showing you cashed checks made out to fake businesses. I have testimony from 3 different people you scammed in the past month alone." He was quiet, calculating, looking for an angle, a way out. "What do you want?" he asked finally. "I want you to call Elise." "What?" "Call my wife. Tell her the truth about what you've been doing since you left our house. Tell her about the people you've scammed, the money you've stolen, the lies you've told." "Why would I do that?" "Because if you don't, I'm calling the police. Right now. I have enough evidence to put you in prison for fraud, theft, and identity theft. Multiple felonies, Danny. You're looking at serious time." His face went pale. "You can't prove any of that." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. A contact labeled Detective Morrison, Boston PD Financial Crimes Unit. "Want to bet?" Danny stared at the phone, then at me, then at the boxes in his car. His whole pathetic life packed into cardboard containers. "What exactly do you want me to tell her?" "The truth. That you're a criminal, that you've been lying to her for years, that everything I said about you was right and everything she believed about you was wrong. She'll never forgive me." "Probably not, but she might forgive you eventually. She'll never forgive me for being right about you, so call her." Danny's hands were shaking as he dialed Elise's number. I could hear it ringing through the phone's speaker. "Danny?" Elise's voice was cautious, worried. "Hey, sis, I need to tell you something. Are you okay? Where are you?" I'm not okay, and I need to apologize." "For what?" Danny looked at me, then at the ground. "Grant was right about me. Everything he said. I am a criminal. I have been stealing from people, lying about my businesses, taking advantage of everyone who tried to help me." Silence on the other end. "Danny, what are you talking about? The jerky business was fake. I took money from investors and spent it on myself. I've been doing it for years. Different businesses, different lies, but always the same scam." "That's not true." "It is true. And when Grant kicked me out, I stole from your house. His laptop, your jewelry, the cash from his desk. I sold it all to pay for this motel room." "Danny, no." "I'm sorry, Elise, I'm so sorry. But Grant was trying to protect you, and I was using you. I've been using everyone. I could hear Elise crying through the phone. Why are you telling me this now? Danny looked at me again. I nodded. Because Grant found me. He has evidence of everything I've done. He could have me arrested, but he's giving me a chance to tell you the truth first. Put him on the phone. Danny handed me his cell phone. Hello, Elise. Is this real? Is he telling the truth? Yes. All of it? All of it. And more. Danny's been running cons for over a decade. Our friends, our neighbors, strangers he met through us. He's stolen thousands of dollars from people who trusted him because he was your brother. Oh my God. I tried to tell you. I tried to warn everyone, but nobody wanted to listen. Grant, I'm so sorry. I know you are. Can you ever forgive me? I looked at Danny, standing next to his car full of stolen goods and broken dreams. I thought about Sarah and Tom, destroying their marriage over secrets and lies. I thought about Jennifer, facing felony charges for embezzlement. I thought about Mike, throwing away his career because guilt made him paranoid. I thought about all the people who'd chosen to believe in a criminal rather than trust someone they'd known for years. I don't know, I said honestly, but I'm willing to try. What happens to Danny? That depends on Danny. If he turns himself in, cooperates with police, tries to make restitution to his victims, maybe he can avoid prison. If he runs, if he keeps scamming people, I'll make sure he gets caught. Danny? Elise's voice was small, broken. I'll turn myself in, Danny said quietly. I'll try to make this right. Good, I said. There's a Detective Morrison at Boston PD Financial Crimes. I'll give you his number. Tell him everything. I handed Danny back his phone and walked toward my car. Grant, he called after me. I turned around. Why didn't you just have me arrested? Why give me the chance to confess? I thought about it for a moment. Because despite everything you've done, you're still Elise's brother. And despite everything that's happened, I still love her. Danny nodded, understanding. For what it's worth, he said. You're a better man than I am. I know. I drove home through the Boston streets, past the coffee shops and restaurants where Danny had held his fake business meetings, past the hotel where Sarah had met her lover, past the school where Mike had sold drugs to teenagers. My phone was buzzing with text messages. Elise, wanting to talk. Sarah, asking if I'd heard about Tom moving out. Jennifer's mother, begging me to help with her daughter's legal fees. Mike's girlfriend, asking if the rumors about him were true. I turned off my phone and drove in silence. When I got home, I sat in my kitchen and opened a bottle of wine. Good wine, the kind I'd been saving for a special occasion. This seemed special enough. My marriage was probably over. Too much damage, too many betrayals, too much pain on both sides. My friendships were definitely over. You can't come back from the kind of mutual destruction we'd inflicted on each other. But I was free. Free from Danny's lies and manipulation. Free from friends who'd judge me without knowing the facts. Free from the burden of supporting people who saw my generosity as weakness and my boundaries as cruelty. It had cost me everything, but I'd won. Danny would face justice for his crimes. Sarah and Tom would have to rebuild their lives without each other. Jennifer would face the consequences of her theft. Mike would find a new career that didn't involve corrupting teenagers. And I would start over, older and wiser, and much more careful about who I trusted. The doorbell rang at 8 o'clock. I opened it to find Elise standing on our front porch, holding a suitcase and looking like she'd been crying for hours. Can we talk? She asked. Of course. She came inside, set down her suitcase, and looked around our living room like she was seeing it for the first time. It feels different, she said. Quieter. Sadder. We sat down on opposite ends of our couch, the same couch where Danny had spent 8 months playing video games and planning his next scam. I owe you an apology, Elise said. A big one. Yes, you do. I chose my brother over my husband. I defended a criminal over someone I'd promised to love and honor. I let him destroy our marriage and then blamed you for fighting back. Why? Because it was easier than admitting I was wrong. Because I'd rather believe you were jealous and petty than accept that my brother was a con artist. Because I've been making excuses for Danny my whole life, and I didn't know how to stop. He's your brother. That's not an excuse. You're my husband. Or you were. You should have come first. We sat in silence for a while, both of us thinking about the wreckage of the past year. What happens now? Elise asked. I don't know. We've hurt each other pretty badly. Can we fix it? Do you want to fix it? Yes, but I don't know if you do. I looked at my wife, really looked at her for the first time in months. She looked exhausted, defeated, older, but she also looked honest in a way she hadn't for a long time. I want to try, I said finally. But things have to change. No more Danny, no more choosing your family over our marriage, no more making excuses for people who hurt us. I understand. And no more Sarah, Tom, Jennifer, or Mike. I'm done with all of them. They were our friends. They were people we knew who turned on us when things got complicated. That's not friendship. Elise nodded slowly. What about the divorce? What about it? Do you still want one? Do you? No. I want my husband back. I want our life back. Our life is gone, Elise. We can't go back to who we were before all this happened. Then we'll build something new. I reached across the couch and took her hand. It felt familiar and strange at the same time. It's going to be hard, I said. I know. We're going to have to learn to trust each other again. I know. And we're going to have to do it without the friends and family we thought we could count on. I know. Are you sure you want to try? Elise squeezed my hand. I'm sure. Outside, it started to rain. The kind of steady, cleansing rain that washes away the old and makes room for something new. We sat on our couch, holding hands and listening to the storm, while Danny drove himself to the police station and our former friends dealt with the consequences of their choices. It wasn't the ending I'd planned when this all started. I'd wanted complete victory, total vindication, the satisfaction of being proven right about everything. Instead, I got something better. I got the chance to rebuild my life with someone who'd finally learned the difference between family and marriage, between loyalty and enabling, between supporting someone and being taken advantage of. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was real. And after a year of lies and manipulation and betrayal, real was enough.